Good morning, dear students. Today we are going to see the biochemical effects of vitamin D. In the former video, we have learned about how the vitamin D get activated to its active form, that is calcitriol. Okay, so in this section, we will see what is the important significance of vitamin D. This vitamin D have some important target site for its action. Which are those sites? They are intestinal villi cells, bone osteoblast, and kidney distal tubular cell. And we will learn the case that action of vitamin D in all these places one by one. First one, we can learn about the role of vitamin D in intestinal villi cells. What is its role there? It helps in the absorption of calcium there in the intestinal villi cell. Okay. This calcitriol, that means vitamin D, it promotes the absorption of calcium and phosphorus from intestine. How it happens, we need to understand it thoroughly. Let's see. So I am going to draw some intestinal villi cells. We know that this is the brush border formed by villi, and this is the mucosal cell that line the intestine, and this is the lumen. Lumen means the space inside the intestine. Clear? And uh, attached to or next to that intestinal mucosal cell, there will be blood capillaries. So these are capillary endothelial cells. Okay. So whatever thing that is reaching the cells need to absorb towards this capillaries. Only then all the cells in our body will obtain whatever nutrient we are ingesting. Okay. And beyond that, blood will be there. So this much structures, I think it's clear to you. This is lumen, this is the intestinal mucosal cell, and these are the endothelial cells of capillary, and beyond that, blood. Okay, and this portion, this membrane is called the basolateral membrane. We need to understand that basolateral membrane also very important. Through this space, that movement of this calcium is taking place. So that's why I am mentioning about that membrane, basolateral membrane. So let's see. As the calcium reaches the lumen, we know that this lumen, from the lumen, it can cross the brush border of the intestinal mucosal cell passively. It doesn't need any energy. But to cross the basolateral membrane to enter inside the blood vessels, it requires energy. So, there comes the importance of vitamin D. We will see it later. So, how, from where this energy is obtainable? So that's what we are going to see. Two methods are there. First method is that we know that sodium is the abundant ion that present outside the cell. And because of that abundancy, it can diffuse towards this intestinal mucosal cell in the direction of its concentration gradient. Okay, that's clear. So as a natural problem, it always will happen. Is always happening in almost all cells. And because of that downhill movement of sodium, some amount of energy is releasing here, and using that energy, the calcium that have already reached inside this mucosal cell, it moves and it crosses the endothelial cell and will reach the blood. That is one method how the calcium is absorbed and it incorporated into the blood. That is the one method. Then what is the second method? There comes the importance of our vitamin D, that is calcitriol. So let's see that. This is our calcitriol. It acts as a steroid hormone. We know that steroid hormone. We know that steroid hormone has a peculiarity, it has an ability to cross the cell membrane, whichever means target cell that we are focusing, that there where all the steroid hormones can cross that membrane and enter the cell. So here also this calcitriol is crossing the cell membrane and enter inside the mucosal cell, intestinal mucosal cell, and inside that cell certain receptors are present. It go and bind with that calcitriol, and both of this structure means this complex, they move inside the nucleus, and there we know that means so many means enormous amount our genetic material is present inside the nucleus, and specifically this complex activates certain genes in our chromosome, and as a result of the transcription and translation of that specific gene, a peculiar type of protein is forming. And that protein's name is calbindin. Calbindin. So, as the level of calbindin protein increases inside the intestinal mucosal cell, it will bind with the calcium ions that already present inside the mucosal cell. So then this complex have the energy to cross the basolateral membrane and reaches the bloodstream for the absorption of the calcium. So that is the role of vitamin D here. From this means process, we understood that vitamin D is necessary for calcium absorption. If vitamin D is absent, then there is no means to some extent the absorption of calcium is impaired, and as a result our body, or we will face so many joint pains, aches like that. Okay. So that is the role of calcium, sorry, role of vitamin D in the calcium absorption in the intestinal vessel. I think it is very clear to you. Okay. Next, we are going to see the effect of vitamin D in bone. What impact the vitamin D is making in bone in its formation. So it is responsible to bring about the mineralization of the bone. How? By increasing the activity of osteoblast cell. So by increasing the activity of osteoblast, vitamin D bring about the mineralization of the bone. Then what do you mean by mineralization? Mineralization means simply it is the deposition of calcium and phosphate in the bone matrix for or building or making up the bone. So that process is mineralization. How that function happen, that's what I am going to explain. That happens how? By increasing the activity of osteoblast. Let's see. Role of vitamin D. Vitamin D, we have learned in our former section that it is otherwise called calcitriol. And this calcitriol or vitamin D, it coordinates the remodeling action of osteoclast and osteoblast. So look to that word remodeling. So these cells, osteoclast and osteoblast, they are doing some remodeling action on the bone for maintaining its proper structure. Okay, before that, I don't know whether you know it or not. What are osteoblasts? Osteoblasts means they are certain cells which form new bones. And also by giving new cells for the bones, it can grow and heal the existing bones. Anyway, simply osteoblasts are bone forming cells. Okay. Uh, okay. Then coming to our point, calcitriol coordinates the remodeling action of osteoclast and osteoblast. Then what is the difference in action base between this osteoclast and osteoblast? Let's see that. Osteoblast always form new bonds. They always form new bonds, or otherwise it add growth to the existing bond. So anyhow, it is giving bonds also. It add bonds or add bond tissue. That's the action of osteoblast. But at the same time, osteoclast, it is dissolving out old and damaged bond tissue. It is dissolving out old and damaged bond tissue, and because of that action, that damaged bond tissue can be replaced with a new one contributed by osteoblast cell. So, function wise, that is the difference between osteoblast and osteoclast. So, their function is remodeled, and that remodeling is coordinated by calcitriol. Calcitriol control the action of this osteoclast and osteoblast. Okay, so um, next, I'm going to explain to you how this osteoclast is forming, or from where this osteoclast is forming. The osteoclast precursors. It is forming from where? It is forming from certain multinucleated cells of osteoblast lineage. What do you understand from that osteoblast lineage? It tells that this osteoclast precursor, it is forming from osteoblast lineage. This osteoblast lineage means they are certain group of cells, and in that group, which all type of cells are present? Mesenchymal progenitor cells, pre osteoblast cell, then mature osteoblast cell, and some bond lining cells and osteocytes. All cells are bond related type cells. Anyway, they form a group, and from that group, what is forming? Our osteoclast precursors. And what is its role? I already told you. Okay. Then I am explaining you how this calcitriol bring about the mineralization. Mineralization. Suppose this is an osteoblast cell, and on its surface certain receptors are present, and I told you that calcitriol or vitamin D is a hormone. So as it binds to these receptors, maybe sometimes it can enter the cell, and it can reach the nucleus and can bring about the transcription of some proteins. Protein, sometimes there are some enzymes, and such type of enzyme is alkaline phosphatase. So the alkaline phosphatase, its secretion is brought about by this calcitriol. Okay, in response to this calcitriol, this enzyme is forming, and what this enzyme is always doing, this phosphatase enzyme always doing is it removes phosphate group from some protein. So that is its action. It always remove phosphate group from some protein. By that way, it can steepens the amount of phosphorus ions near to the bone, and as the amount of phosphorus ion increase, it may lead to the mineralization of the bone. So that is the role of vitamin D. Indirectly, it brings about the mineralization of the bone by resulting in the secretion of this enzyme. So that is the role of vitamin D in bone. It brings about the mineralization, and also it can remodel and coordinates the action of osteoclast and osteoblast. Okay. Next, we are going to see effect of vitamin D in renal tubules. What is its role in kidney? It increase at the renal tubule, especially that reabsorption of calcium and phosphorus is happening, and that reabsorption of calcium and phosphorus depends upon the condition of a body. It is done by this vitamin D. By reabsorbing these two ions, the body will get that minerals in the time of its low level. Clear? So calcium and phosphorus reabsorption. It is stimulated or it is promoted by the vitamin D in renal tubules. That is the role. Next, we are going to see how the level of vitamin D is regulated in our body. So, that vitamin D calcitriols level, it is maintained, it is regulated by a feedback control. Okay, so let's see how it is happening. Its production or its level is regulated by checking the level or means internally according to the level of calcium and phosphorus. Not only calcium and phosphorus, PTH, parathyroid hormone, and the level of this calcitriol itself, where in the serum. So, what is the level of calcium? What is the level of phosphorus? What is the level of parathyroid hormone? And what is the level of calcitriol in serum? Based on that, its synthesis is regulated. So, what is the role of parathyroid hormone? Parathyroid hormone, it results in the release of calcium from bone whenever the blood calcium level is low. Whenever blood calcium level is low, this parathyroid hormone results in the release of calcium from bones. So that is the role of parathyroid hormone. Okay. And which is the main site, which is the main step, main controlling step of this vitamin D synthesis. It is by controlling the 1 alpha hydroxylase, where we have seen this enzyme. While learning about the biosynthesis of vitamin D, I have told that a second hydroxylation at the first carbon is happening in the kidney with the help of this enzyme 1 alpha hydroxylase. So, by regulating that enzyme, its expression, the synthesis of vitamin D is controlled. Uh, take the case of two conditions, hypercalcemia and hypocalcemia. Hypercalcemia means high level of calcium, and as there is enough amount of calcium in the blood, there is no requirement to reabsorb it. We have learned that in the industry, this vitamin D is helping the reabsorption of calcium. As high calcium is present in the blood, then there is no need of further reabsorption. That in turn means that there is no need of synthesis of vitamin D for the purpose of reabsorbing calcium, because there is high level of calcium. So hypercalcemia decreases calcitriol or vitamin D. At the same time, low calcium level or hypocalcemia, it increase the production of vitamin D. Vitamin D is always called 1,25 dihydroxy cholecalciferol. And the stimulatory effect, this hypocalcemic condition, it induces a stimulatory effect on alpha hydroxylase enzyme to synthesize this vitamin D. That function, that action takes place through the parathyroid hormone. How it takes place through the parathyroid hormone? Whenever the calcium level in the blood, whenever the calcium level in the blood decreases, in response to that, this parathyroid hormone will secreted or from the parathyroid gland, and it results in the release of calcium from bones to the blood to raise the level of calcium level in the blood. So that is an indirect indication that calcium need to be reabsorbed. So in response to high level of parathyroid hormone, this 1 alpha hydroxylase, it is synthesized, and this 1 alpha hydroxylase can mediate the synthesis of vitamin D. So that is the way how vitamin D is synthesized when the body faces hypocalcemia. Okay. And the half-life of this 125 DHCC is 6 to 8 hours. And after that, it is excreted through the bile. Excreted through bile. And uh, how can we inactivate this vitamin D? By oxidizing this side chain. By oxidizing means by because of oxidation, some double bonds may means form in the side chain, and that results in the inactivation of the vitamin D. So that's another method of regulation. And we have learned that in the biosynthesis pathway, instead of hydroxylation at the first carbon, sometimes the 24th position, 24th carbon may get hydroxylated. And that also result a type of vitamin D, but it is having poor activity. Its activity is less when compared to our normal 125 DHCC. So at what time this 24th position get hydroxylated? That happens when the vitamin D status is adequate, when there is enough amount of vitamin D or calcium level. Then that time, instead of hydroxylating the first carbon, the 24th carbon get hydroxylated and will form this 24-25 DHCC is a less active form. So here the regulation how happens here also in response to low calcium level, the hydroxylation site is changed. By that way, a less active vitamin D is forming. That is another means of regulation. Um, and this 125 DHCC level, this it reciprocally regulates the PTH secretion also. How it reciprocally regulates the secretion of PTH? This 125 DHCZ level is high or in a satisfactory level, then it brings about the calcium reabsorption. And as there is adequate level of calcium in the blood, then there is no more need of this PTH hormone secretion, and its level will lower. So in that way, the 125 DHC level can regulate the level of parathyroid hormone also. I hope that these are all some effects of vitamin D, and how we can regulate the level of vitamin D in our body. I hope it's clear to you. Thank you.
I'm an icon, man. I'm a girl about a 10. I should fuck her in a Benz.